Of course, we know the Health Hub is not just about COVID-19. It's got to do with all health matters, at least those that matter to you. And let's move away from COVID-19 for just a moment, Mia, and reflect on another health issue that's been making headlines over the past couple of days, and that's to do with teenage pregnancies. It's an issue that has taken a lot of people by surprise, especially once you consider the numbers. There was a lot of shock value to just how many teenagers are falling pregnant. But I wonder how we move away from that and start discussing perhaps, I don't know, interventions, education to try shift the tide.
Yes, Ayanda, and I think one way to address that is to equip parents to talk to their teenagers about sex, because it really does start at home. But that is so uncomfortable for so many parents. And you know, I'm a parent myself. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I would like her to feel comfortable to ask me questions that she has about sex so that I can answer them rather than someone outside of my home. But that is, of course, easier said than done.
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do today is we are going to speak to a sex educator who talks to teenagers about sex all the time and ask her how she does it, so that us parents can learn from her. So we are joined on the line by Mamello Sejake, that is from Cape Town. Thank you very much for your time today, Mamello. Let's get straight into the issue. What are the most common questions that young people, particularly teenagers, ask you about sex?
Good morning. So they often ask me about how to increase pleasure in their sexual lives. They ask me about different forms of contraceptives because they don't always want parents to know that they're on contraceptives. They ask me how to ask their partners to use a condom, and they often tell me about stories about having sex, and a lot of the times they don't know that they were coerced into having sex.
Mamello, you've been doing sex education for many years, but so many parents feel so uncomfortable when they have to speak to their teenagers about sex. So to help this, can you give us an example of how to do this? Let's say I'm a teenage girl and I need to negotiate for the use of a condom with a partner so that I can protect myself from falling pregnant or contracting a sexually transmitted infection. What would you tell me?
I would suggest that they speak to their partners about using a condom beforehand and tell them that if they won't use a condom, then sex is not something that they're willing to engage it with. I would suggest that they carry their own condom so that they do not find themselves in a position where there is no condom, but they want to have sex. Or I also suggest that they use the internal condom, which is also known as the female condom, and they can keep that inside of them for up to 7 hours prior to having sex.
Mamello, we so often hear that it's a girl's responsibility to make sure she doesn't fall pregnant and uses contraception. But it takes two people to have sex, of course. So how do we address this issue with boys?
So I would say to them that although they will not get pregnant if they have sex without a condom, but they can protect themselves and their partners from unwanted pregnancy if they use a condom, which they should be doing, and also using a condom protects them, allows them to protect themselves from contracting sexually transmitted infections.
So if you have to give parents your top tip on how to talk to their teenagers about sex, what would that be?
I would say that teenagers are having sex, and a lot of them are going to have sex, and they're going to look for information about sex. So it is best if they get the right kind of information from their parents as opposed to getting it from their peers. And speaking about sex does not mean that you are that you're encouraging them to have sex or that they will disrespect you. It just gives them the right information to be able to make choices to protect themselves.
Mamello, last question. So parents are uncomfortable. If you are uncomfortable about speaking about sex, how do you overcome that level of unease to talk to your child about it? What do you do?
I think the first thing is to understand that there's nothing shameful about having sex and nothing wrong with having sex. So if we if we think about it in that way, and it is just as natural as eating or breathing, then it might take away some of the anxiety and nerves. And to also understand that it doesn't need to be this serious, hectic conversation, but it's something you can have over a cup of tea or while you're taking a walk. And but it's not a technical thing, you know. Just speak about it as something that can be empowering and gives them the tools and the tips to take care of themselves and build a level of trust and openness between you two or you and them, so that should anything happen, they feel comfortable to come and speak to you about sex. There's also plenty of resources online that can teach you and give you information and tips on how to speak to them about sex.
Thank you very much for your time today, Mamello. That was Mamello Sejake, and she is a sex education workshop facilitator who joined us from Cape Town.